All right. Thank you. I see we have some attendees joining. We're going to give ourselves a few minutes as people begin to join. Welcome to all of our Ballard neighbors, and thank you so much for being with us tonight. So I see we have about almost 70 people registered, so I'm going to give folks a few minutes. I know some of you probably have tiny humans that you're taking care of, or tiny animals, or finishing dinner. So we'll give it a couple minutes, but thank you so much for joining. I'm gonna start sharing my screen so that it's all up and running. If you're just now joining, thank you for joining. We're gonna give it a few minutes for people to log on. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay. Do you see my screen, presenters? Okay, great. All right, if you're just now joining, we are just getting set up here. We're allowing people to hop on. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really appreciate all of you hopping on this meeting. Trying to see how many people have joined. Now that I shared my screen, I can't see. Yes, so someone just asked in the chat, I am going to go over all of our housekeeping items in just a minute, including recording. So, okay, see we have 37 people. We'll give it maybe 2 more minutes. If you're just now joining, thank you so much for joining us on this virtual community meeting tonight. We're so happy you're here. We're going to get started in a couple minutes. We have almost 70 people who are registered for this, so we want to give people a chance to go ahead and sign on. Oh no, I see. Okay. All right. Again, if you're just now joining, we're just getting set up here and allowing folks to hop on. Get started in 1 more minute. Okay. Well, we are just about at 7:05, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I am going to start recording the meeting now. Just wanted to let everyone know. Let's see. Oh, I already started. Okay. All right, looks like we already started recording, so I don't have to press that button. Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. As you can tell, this is one of our first virtual community meetings. Usually we would invite you all to a community space and we would be able to meet you all in person. But unfortunately, as you know, COVID has left us unable to do that. So this is the next best option. We're so glad to have so many community members of this new project joining us tonight. Before we get started, I just want to provide a couple of housekeeping notes. So we will be recording the presentation portion of this meeting. We're kind of going to divide it up into 2 different parts. So first will be a presentation where you'll hear from some of our Plymouth housing staff about the Ballard PSH project, and then we'll shift into a Q&A where we will invite participants to ask questions of our panel. The Q&A will not be recorded. However, we will be writing down all of your questions, and we will be providing a follow-up document with everyone's questions and answers written down following the meeting. And there are two ways you can ask a question tonight. First, you can ask a question in the Q&A box. This is different from the chat. So if you want to send us a chat, that's fine. But we'd really like everyone to use the Q&A box to ask a question, or during the Q&A panel, you can use the raise hand function and we can unmute your microphone. And due to the volume of participants, we're going to keep everyone muted throughout the presentation. So if you would like to ask a question during the panel, please just use that raise hand function and I will unmute you. With that said, I believe we are ready to get started. We are going to end promptly at 8:30. I know that a lot of you and a lot of us have children at home who we have to get to and have bedtimes. So we want to honor that and honor all of your other commitments. So we are going to keep this in the time allotted. So with that, I would just like to welcome you on behalf of the Plymouth Housing team. My name is Elizabeth Murphy. I'm a real estate development associate at Plymouth Housing working on this very special project in Ballard. And we're thrilled to have all of you here tonight. And I'd just like to introduce our first presenter, Tim Parham, who's our Director of Real Estate.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and welcome everybody. We'll do more introductions of other team members as we go through the evening. But we have a great little slideshow for y'all and look forward to Q&A at the end. But we're going to start with a little bit about Plymouth Housing. So Plymouth was founded in 1980 by the Plymouth Congregational Church downtown, and grown from a little nonprofit that was working on fixing up old fishing hotels that were single room occupancy to a really bigger agency with over 200 employees now and over 1,100 apartments across 15 buildings in and around downtown Seattle. As you can see here, our mission is to eliminate homelessness and address its root causes by preserving, developing, and operating safe, quality, supportive housing, and providing homeless adults with opportunities to stabilize and improve their lives. And the way we do that is through our model of housing first. So we believe that folks, in order to be successful in housing, need to just have that made available to them with as few barriers as possible. We empower our residents by providing them services for which they can engage in. And we provide opportunities for them to grow in the housing through our amazing supportive services. And we'll touch on more what those services are later in the presentation. So what is the need for housing and homeless services in Ballard? You know, I was on a call with the Ballard, I'm sorry if I get this wrong, the community council or the district council, one of those, just towards the tail end of 2020 with several other homeless service providers. And we know you guys have some great services in the community there, and we're excited to add to that with our portion of the solution, which is permanent supportive housing. And we'll talk about the need for the type of housing Plymouth does in these next few slides. So Plymouth works with a population called folks experiencing chronic homelessness. And folks experiencing chronic homelessness are not the type of folks that have just fallen on hard times and need to couch to crash on for a few months as they return to stable housing or get back into the workforce. These are folks that have been on the streets or in unsheltered conditions for anywhere from 2 to 10 to 20 years. And these are the folks that are most expensive to serve because of the trauma they've experienced out on the streets and multiple co-occurring disorders and things that they need to stay stably housed. We have a picture here of Latricia, and I was going to read a little bit about her. So Latricia has schizophrenia, When her family moved away, she was left to manage her condition alone. And doctors had not found the right medication and doses to support her. She ended up cycling between shelters, hospitals, and life on the streets for 20 years. Then she was connected with an apartment at Plymouth, and community building activities and healthcare support have provided her stability, and she's still housed at Plymouth today. Just the last thing I'll touch on this slide is that a big portion of people experiencing homelessness in King County, currently over 3,000 or so, are experiencing chronic homelessness. That's about a third of all of those experiencing homelessness in King County. I'm gonna go to the next one. Excuse me, and I'm also sorry if I'm not making eye contact with you. I'm looking at my notes over here. So again, chronic homelessness, it really refers to somebody who's has been homeless for at least 12 months. There's some more technical definitions, but primarily folks that have been homeless for over a year. And we touched on that. And specifically, who Plymouth serves are single adults experiencing chronic homelessness. So not families or youth. There's a lot of other providers in Seattle and in the region that serve those populations, but Plymouth focuses on adults experiencing chronic homelessness. I'm gonna go to the next one. So where does Plymouth fit into the continuum of care? Or another way to say it would be, what is Plymouth's solution of the many solutions working together to end homelessness? So on the left, you see prevention. So that's the creation of affordable housing and keeping people in their homes to avoid homelessness. And then in the middle, you see emergency services. So that's temporary shelters, tiny homes, transitional housing, day centers, other congregate living, those sorts of things that are meant to be temporary places where folks can get out of the elements and off the streets. Finally, Plymouth fits in on the far right there under housing. So we operate permanent supportive housing, and we're going to break that term down for you more, but it is long-term housing. Folks have leases just like any other apartment building and pay rent. The thing that's different from normal apartment buildings is the amount of community space and the amazing services we provide to support people to keep them stably housed and tackle any issues that they're willing to take on in their lives. I think we can go to the next one. So it's a little bit about the need for the project. And now we're going to talk just a little bit about the project itself. So here's a rendering of the building. It's at the corner of 15th Ave Northwest and Northwest 64th Street, just a block south of the Ballard High. We'll be providing 79 studio apartments for single adults who have experienced homelessness, plus 2 live-in staff apartments, which is a Plymouth standard. We always provide spaces for our staff that work on site, at least a couple of them to stay in the building. And so there'll be 81 total apartments. We also have ground floor commercial spaces along 15th Avenue Northwest. And construction is expected to start in the next couple of weeks and open up in the middle of 2022 in May or June. Go to the next one. Here's just a map of the location. The highlighted red square there is the site. And go to the timeline of where we are. And actually I should pause there. I think I missed something in my notes about a little bit more about the project. So actually, Elizabeth, could you go back to the rendering slide? I'll just speak to it from there. So this project came to be partly through an innovative program with the city of Seattle. Mayor Jerkin announced this last summer, a pilot project to develop 500 or 600 apartments for folks experiencing homelessness throughout Seattle as fast and as efficiently as possible from a cost standpoint. And part of the impetus of this project was taking advantage of emergency legislation, now permanent legislation that speeds up the permitting and entitlement process for permanent supportive housing in Seattle, so we could bring these projects on quicker. As part of that, this site was actually selected by another developer, the Inland Group out of Spokane. And they bought this site. And the reason why they're the developer, not Plymouth, is they're a vertically integrated company that's both a developer and a general contractor. So their ability to control costs by having those efficiencies also helps in this pilot project where we're trying to find ways to reduce costs to bring more supportive housing to meet that demand that I talked about of all those chronically homeless individuals as fast as possible. So they're the developer, they own the site, they bought the site and approached Plymouth about partnering on this project, and they're going to develop it. And soon after the building is open, then Plymouth will take ownership. We're delighted about the design and the location, and it's been great to work with Inland. So now we can go back to the timeline, Elizabeth, thanks. So that was just over the summer, so I'll move very quickly, which was the intent here. We've met with, I'm sure some of you on this call and some that aren't already. We've been making our rounds, meeting with the Ballard Alliance, some folks at Ballard High, the district council that I mentioned earlier, and several other neighbors in the vicinity, just to get introduced to the community and get to know you all. And this is our first chance tonight to really host a broader group, but we look forward to developing one-on-one relationships with all of you. And we're always available to meet and chat. And so, as I mentioned, construction will be starting soon and opening up in 2022. And then we usually take about 6 or 8 months to lease up, just to make sure that the community can stabilize as we're leasing up the building. And I think with that, that concludes my slides, and I'm going to turn it over to Trina.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Trina Thompson. I am the Director of Property Management. And what I'm going to talk about is, what does Plymouth do? Next slide. So like Tim mentioned, we serve single adults with acute needs. And of roughly 1,100 people we serve, 96% were disabled, 58% have mental health conditions, 47% were people of color, 14% are veterans, and 59% are older than 55. Next slide. Also, like Tim mentioned, we're a permanent supportive housing agency. Our model pairs affordable housing where the tenants have a lease offering indefinite length of stay as long as the tenant complies with the lease requirements. The tenant will pay no more than 30% or their household income on housing costs. In supportive housing, the tenant has easy access to comprehensive array of individualized and flexible services with case management and support services on site or in close proximity to their housing. Next slide. Plymouth owns and operates 15 apartment buildings with over 1,100 apartments. Our apartments look like any other apartment buildings with ample community and office space, TV rooms, courtyards, computer rooms, and community kitchens. The services are designed to build independent living and tenancy skills and connect people with community-based healthcare, substance use treatment, and behavioral health services. Plymouth also offers on-site 24-hour staff, and some of our buildings have nursing and behavioral health services on site. Permanent supportive housing has been shown to not only help people experiencing chronic homelessness to achieve long-term housing stability, but also improve their health and well-being. Without stable housing, they cycle in and out of the emergency departments, inpatient hospital stays, psychiatric centers, and jails, resulting in high public costs. Permanent supportive housing is a cost-effective solution. For the cost of 3 months in King County Jail, 3 days in the hospital, Plymouth provides 365 days of housing and critical support services. 97% of Plymouth residents succeed in maintaining a permanent home and leaving homelessness. They enjoyed improved health and connectedness to their community. I'm now going to turn it over to John. Thank you.
Thank you, Trina. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chan. I am a portfolio manager in Plymouth's property management department. Ballard Crossing will be a building that I'll be overseeing once it opens up. I just want to take a brief moment to discuss what is Plymouth like as a neighbor, just to give you a general idea of what to expect about having us as your neighbor. So the 3 key operating principles that we have at Plymouth, first one is safety. Our buildings are staffed 24/7 to provide support for our residents and an affirmative presence for the neighborhood. So what that really means is adding eyes on the street with our staff in the security office, making sure that the security cameras in the outside of our buildings are working, making sure that our staffs are looking for and removing graffitis, trash in the area, making sure that we are having a regular engagement with you, our community, about safety concerns that you might have. We also have monitor entrance at our buildings, so we know who is coming and going through our building. And as Tim mentioned earlier, we have live-in staff to provide support and respond to building emergencies. So that's the first principle, safety. Second is design. We use design to enhance neighborhood identity. We get guidance from the community by developing relationship with you all and holding public meetings like we are doing tonight, and actively soliciting feedback so we can add beneficial features to our buildings. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, community. We're committed to supporting the neighborhoods around our buildings. We get to know our neighbors and contribute to community groups, both during development and after the development, after our residents and staff moves into the building. Next slide, please. Thank you. Unlike shelters, our residents, when they move into one of our buildings, they have to sign a lease. And as a leaseholder, they have rights and responsibilities. So the responsibility for our tenants is for them to follow the building rules, such as making sure that they dispose trash properly, or following the city's noise ordinance, or just being a generally a good neighbor by, being respectful to each other and not behaving in a threatening or harassing manner to other people. And in turn, Plymouth Housing follows landlord-tenant laws, and we make sure that we recognize tenants' right to privacy. So we're going to be here for a long term, and we want to be part of your community. You'll probably see me and some of our panel members tonight go in and out of the Ballard crossings for years to come. And our regulations require that we own and operate our buildings for 50 or more years. So we'll be there, and we'll love to be part of your community as much as you let us in. This picture that you see on the slide here on the left side is from our Plymouth on First Hill building. It is our first building on First Hill. We now have 2 other buildings in construction there in Seattle, and we're dues paying members of the First Hill Improvement Association there. And we just find that it's much better not to just only be invited when folks want to talk about homelessness or safety issues that they might have about our building, but to be there at the table all the time, and we're willing to do that with this project as well. And with that, I will hand it over to Kathy.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy Martin. I'm the Strategic Partnerships Manager with Plymouth, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what it's like participating and getting involved with Plymouth. So as Trina mentioned, we have 15 buildings across Seattle, which means we have a lot of neighbors, and we have really strong partnerships with our neighbors. We like to play an active role in the community, and there's opportunities like a meal service or game nights, or joining us for our long-standing holiday traditions to just get involved with our buildings and get to experience being a neighbor with us. So with that in mind, we hope to build some strong relationships with the groups and organizations and people that serve Ballard. We find that those interactions and meetings like tonight are what allow us to be a good neighbor, learn more about your community, the realities and needs that you have, and see how we can work together to be neighbors. And so I wanted to put a little plug out there for any groups or people that wanted further information or a smaller setting to get to know us. We're happy to go to community meetings, attend any sort of event that it would be helpful to get to know us more. So definitely reach out if you want to continue the dialogue after this evening. And then there's other ways to get involved as an individual as well. So we have lots of volunteer opportunities. Of course, this year has been a little limited, but there are opportunities to join us for meal service. Like I said, we have some really long-standing holiday traditions that are really fun to get involved with. And then we have special events across our buildings, and I'm sure Ballard will as well, where each building has its own unique community with special projects and ways to work with our residents. And we also have opportunities to help support Ballard residents as they move into the new building. We provide every new resident with welcome home baskets and food bags, which basically stock the room with all the essentials you would need to move into an apartment. And we would love to work with the community to put those bags together. Like I said, hosting a learning event, continuing to schedule times to meet together and talk and get to know one another. And then as always, donations are appreciated. We're just really excited to work with you all and get to know you more. And please do reach out if you have questions or are excited about any of these opportunities. Thanks. And I think back to Elizabeth now.
Thank you to all of our panelists. I really appreciate all the information that was shared, and I hope we were able to answer some of the questions that you came with tonight. However, I do see there are some questions popping up in our Q&A box already. So just as a reminder, you can ask a question in our Q&A box, and we'll get to it that way. Or you can use the raise hand function and I will unmute you. So to moderate our Q&A panel, I want to introduce my colleague Hong.
Hi there, good evening everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us. We will go ahead and get started with our Q&A portion of the meeting. It looks like we have some questions that Tim had answered